Hey everybody, Dr. P here. I'm a board certified OBGYN, and today we're talking about, can you have high blood pressure without preeclampsia? By the end of this video, we will talk about, can you have high blood pressure without having preeclampsia in pregnancy? How is gestational hypertension different from high blood pressure in other ways? What are the different forms of hypertension in pregnancy? And what you should look out for to distinguish between high blood pressure, gestational hypertension, preeclampsia, and eclampsia. High blood pressure happens in 1 out of every 12 to 17 pregnancies in the United States. Preeclampsia happens in 1 out of every 25 pregnancies in the United States. These numbers are quite high. And so with that, it's very important that we understand preeclampsia and other hypertensive disorders that can happen in pregnancy. And this video will explain that all. In general, most people should be able to go through pregnancy without having a significant change in their blood pressures. The average blood pressure is 120/80. That's the top number, a systolic value, and the bottom number, a diastolic number. Both of those numbers are very important in giving us an idea of how well our heart is pumping and our blood vessels are responding to the pressures of the blood passing through them on a daily basis. You can absolutely have high blood pressure in pregnancy and this not be preeclampsia or eclampsia. High blood pressure in pregnancy is called gestational hypertension. Essentially, that means that you have hypertension in pregnancy or gestation that is very different from when you are not pregnant. Gestational hypertension often ends with the end of the postpartum period. That means that you've cleared the pregnancy and the problem has been solved, and so you return to normal pre-pregnancy levels. A very small subset of people will continue to have hypertension, which will no longer be called gestational. This will be called chronic hypertension. Gestational hypertension is diagnosed when you have had 2 elevated blood pressures on 2 separate occasions at least 4 hours apart. The level that is considered to be elevated would be blood pressures greater than 140/90. So imagine that you go to your prenatal visit today and your blood pressure was exactly 140/90. At that time, if this is the first occurrence of this, you do not have hypertension of pregnancy. However, if beyond 4 hours later than the first high blood pressure, you have a second level that is elevated, 145/96, 130/100, anything that's greater than 140/90, after that second elevated blood pressure, you now have a minimum diagnosis of gestational hypertension or pregnancy-induced hypertension, PIH. Now, if you also have symptoms such as headaches, vision changes, or right upper quadrant pain, all of which I've recently reviewed in this video, what is preeclampsia, you now have a more severe diagnosis that is either linked with preeclampsia or maybe eclampsia as well. Gestational hypertension only occurs after the 20th week of pregnancy. If you had elevated blood pressures prior to the 20th week, more than likely, on 2 occasions again, you now have a diagnosis of chronic hypertension. That means that regardless of the pregnancy, regardless of what's happening in life, you chronically have underlying blood pressure problems. After the 20th week of pregnancy, when your placenta is fully matured and can present this issue, you are now at risk of having pregnancy-induced hypertension or gestational hypertension, preeclampsia, or eclampsia. Each type of hypertension that can affect pregnancy are treated completely differently. With gestational hypertension, you can probably make it to the end of pregnancy without any problems and without any further development of preeclampsia or eclampsia. The most important factor while having a diagnosis of gestational hypertension is making sure that your blood pressures are well controlled. In general, after the diagnosis, even if you continue to have mildly elevated blood pressures, meaning blood pressures in the range of 140 to 150s, over 80s to 90s, you may just need a little bit of blood pressure medicines and still be in a very safe zone. In general, my recommendation is not to have perfect blood pressures, but to have blood pressures that are not in the severe range. If you have preeclampsia, in this scenario, it is very, very important that we monitor your symptoms, monitor those blood pressures to make sure they're not continuing to be in a severe range, and if they are, that we are planning for delivery of your baby. And the reason is, research has shown that in the presence of gestational hypertension, the likelihood of developing preeclampsia develops more and more over time. As we care for you in pregnancy, while having this diagnosis of gestational hypertension, we know that it's very important that we balance your baby's risk of being in the NICU and having complications with your risk of developing worsening preeclampsia or eclampsia. The goal is always to get to the end of pregnancy. However, that's not necessarily always feasible. Talk with your doctors so that you can create a plan regardless of the type of hypertension that you may have. That's chronic hypertension with the risk of still developing preeclampsia versus gestational hypertension versus preeclampsia or even eclampsia, so that you can talk about the long-term plan, delivery plan, and the safety of you and your baby. While hypertension in pregnancy is quite common, there are so many different things that we can do to help intervene, evaluate, and treat so that we can decrease the likelihood of things worsening and you potentially being at risk. I hope you've learned a lot today. It's been a pleasure for me to share this information with you and much more right here on this channel. I have a free gift for you below. Click the link so that you can get a free version of my ebook, Hormones Don't Lie. As we're all females, we undergo so many different changes every single day in and out of pregnancy, and knowing and balancing your hormones will help you to live your best life, and I'm here for it. I'm Dr. Perkins, a board-certified OBGYN, and if you've enjoyed this video today, please like and subscribe to this channel, and I hope to see you next time.